Good morning, everyone. Here's your host, September, from the Colorado Springs Fertility Conference.
Good morning, everyone. This is September from the Colorado Springs Fertility Conference. I'm here this morning with Dr. Diane from East Winds Acupuncture. Dr. Diane, thank you for being here with us today and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get started. Let's just jump right into it. I'm actually really excited about talking about acupuncture because I remember my first acupuncture appointment ever. I went in and they put the tiny little needles in me and then they turned on a heater and they turned off the lights and they said, go to sleep.
Right.
And I was like, have I just died and gone to heaven? It was like the greatest thing I've ever experienced. So let's talk about acupuncture for fertility and what that can do. But first, tell me a little bit about you, about your training, your background. How did you actually get into Chinese medicine?
Right. So I spent 20 years in Western medicine as an X-ray technologist, CT scans, angiography, heart caths, those kinds of things. I went through a period of my life with it where I had a lot of stress and I got very sick. And Western medicine didn't really have a lot of tools and kept telling me, oh, once we get your thyroid under control, once your liver enzymes are back to normal, you'll be fine. So they gave me all the Western medications, and of course after a year or so my enzymes and thyroid were under control with medications, but I knew I was not okay. So I kind of felt like I was falling through the cracks of Western medicine. I heard from a girlfriend that an acupuncturist had just opened a practice. And so I thought, what the heck, it couldn't hurt. Within a year and a half of being treated with him, acupuncture herbs, lifestyle changes, I was off all my medications and back racing. I'm a competitive triathlete.
Okay.
And so I wasn't even able to train or race. And it was a very difficult time for me. So I saw every day in the hospital where people were falling through the cracks of Western medicine. And so I thought, this is really my message from the universe to make some changes. And so I quit my job and went back to school.
Wow. And you actually studied in China, right?
I did. I did a summer program there. Yeah.
That's really cool.
It was really interesting.
That's fascinating. I would love to go to China.
Yeah.
One place I've never been yet.
Very different.
Yeah. So how did you get involved in, I know you do a lot of research on infertility and how acupuncture improves fertility outcomes and things. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So when I opened my practice in 1995, within a year, that first year, I got a call from some acupuncturists in Denver who were working with the big reproductive endocrinologist groups in that area. And there had been a study that was published by a woman who's our guru. And what's interesting is she's not even an acupuncturist, she's a neuroscientist.
Oh, wow.
So she studies the effects of acupuncture on the brain, chemicals, hormones, and so that was one of the first studies, and it actually reported on uterine blood flow. So with a series of treatments, they would test the Doppler ultrasound, what they call the pulsatility index, through the uterine artery. And if it was high, meaning there was less blood flow, they would refer them to acupuncture. So the group in Denver had a lot of patients here in Colorado Springs, and they said, we're looking for somebody to work with our patients. So I volunteered, learned the protocol, and that's kind of how it all started.
So that actually brings me to this Aborn. I'm very curious about this. I've got a little brochure here in front of me, but it's talking about being specifically certified as an acupuncturist to be able to help with fertility and reproduction. How does that work?
Yes, I was one of the founders of Aborn.
Okay.
There was a fellow in California whose goal it was to teach acupuncturists how to work with reproductive endocrinology. One of the things we know is when you're combining East and West, you have to know both sides. As an acupuncturist, I have to know what the goals of the reproductive endocrinologist or even OB is, because my goal is to enhance their outcomes, not thwart them or do something that might not be helpful. And that was the biggest thing when I met Dr. Paul Megarelli, is he wanted to make sure that if he referred his patients to me, that I was not going to do harm or go against something that he was trying to accomplish. So we set the board up, and we all took positions on the board. We all wrote, so many questions for the exam, and people began to take the courses online, and then once they felt prepared, they would, sign up for the test. It basically was, it tested us, 50% of it was acupuncture, Chinese medicine, and herbs, and then the other half was Western medicine. So we had to know the biology of reproduction, what happens with the hormones, what does the FSH drive, what does it mean if there's low FSH.
Wow.
And so we started with 8 of us being certified, and now, how many years later, we have over 400 all over the world.
Wow.
Certified.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. Yeah, I completely agree that I think it's very important for anybody who's working with fertility on either side. Either we're kind of having an east-west conversation here, but there's other ways of looking at it, of course. But whatever side you're on, you really have to understand the biology of what's actually going on.
That's so key, because then I know, okay, if this is happening in the body right now, how can I enhance that? What do we need? Do we need more estrogen? Do we need more qi for the ovulation? Blood for uterine wall lining? Yes, absolutely.
How does acupuncture actually accomplish those things?
Right. So remember, we went to the neuroscientist.
Mm-hmm.
So she's been key to really help us look at the mechanism of action. So what Western medicine has found, that when you put a needle in a person, that it's at the acupoint is near nerve bundles.
Okay.
And so what happens is they're actually able to photograph this now with, I think it's called Kirlian photography. Put the needle in the body, and they can watch these little nerve endings, fibers, wrap around this needle.
Wow.
So
really?
that's the connection that sends the message. You get a cut on your leg, right? It sends a message to the brain through the spinal column.
Yeah.
To the brain, oh my gosh, there's pain.
Right.
So when you think about the acupuncture, we put needles in according to how we want to reprogram the brain. How do we want to regulate the hormones? How do we want to calm cortisol down? How do we want to regulate the menstrual cycle?
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's really neat. So what we're here obviously talking about is creating babies. So can you talk a little bit about what it does for the uterus specifically to create a warming, welcoming environment to grow a baby in?
Right. So that uterine blood flow is key. And we know that when we're stressed, everything tightens, right? We're in fight or flight. We're constantly, feeling like we have to run from the saber-toothed tiger, yet we're in our car, we're at our desk, and so we don't get a chance to really expel that, use that cortisol that's meant to be for escape. So the blood flow goes to our extremities because we're supposed to use that, right? So it's not going to the core. We call this the dantian, near the uterus area. If you look at where the whole endocrine system is in the body, it's that center, pituitary, ovaries, adrenal glands, which sit on the kidneys, it's core.
Wow. You talk a little bit about winter versus summer and hot versus cold in the body. Can you talk about that and how that affects fertility?
Sure. So the Chinese actually base their medicine on looking at what the human bodies are doing in any season. So they looked to see what happened with people when they were in the cold all the time. The kidneys would get cold, they would have profuse urination, they would have low back pain. In the summer, they would look at how heat affects the body. And what we know about heat is it can damage our cells, right? So we see a lot of women who have too much heat, meaning they're having hot nights, hot flashes, night sweats. They're not hydrated enough, and that actually damages the oocyte.
And when you talk about hydration, one of the things that I've learned over the years is that doesn't necessarily mean just drinking more water. It's about electrolytes, and it's about balancing the kidneys.
Exactly. So the kidneys, the spleen, and the liver are the key 3 organs for fertility. In Chinese medicine, the kidneys are sort of the hormonal regulators. And so, yes, you've heard about athletes dying of hyponatremia because they're drinking water, exactly to your point, and you're not holding on to the electrolytes, potassium, sodium. So it makes a huge difference. Are you actually absorbing the water you're drinking?
So do you have a recommendation on how to actually absorb those electrolytes and get those?
Yes, I do. Yes, and it's not Gatorade.
Right? Please don't drink Gatorade. Please stop.
No, I have found a product, and I'm not, associated with any product, but there's one out there called Ultima. And I like that one because it's pretty low carb. It's not sugary. And I find if my folks drink it has a nice flavor, they're more likely to drink water.
Yeah.
And so I just get them to sip on it, because as you know, if you're thirsty, you drink a whole glass of water and it just goes through you. Your body doesn't have time. So it's key, absolutely key.
To sip and
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. This topic is actually close to my heart, because we talk a lot about the women, and we talk about the emotions that the women are going through, and women who are going through infertility simply don't feel like women, honestly. They feel like they're not able to give their husbands the baby that they want, things like that. But what about the guys? We kind of tend to forget about these poor guys, and they're going through it just as much as the women are.
Yeah, I think it's different for guys. I do think it's different. Just to back up a little bit, yes, I think everything you said is absolutely true, and I think women lose faith in their body.
Yes.
They lose faith that, why can't I? This is a normal process. I should be able to get pregnant. And what's interesting is I use the word disheartened. They get disheartened. And in Chinese medicine, the uterus and the heart are very connected.
Okay.
And if you look at the Western aspect of it, which is that integrative piece, the heart and the uterus have this exact same muscle structure in the whole body. They're the only two organs that share those muscle structures.
Okay. The smooth muscle?
Smooth muscle. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay.
I think for men it's hard because they feel their ego is bruised.
Yeah.
And it's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's environment, it's stress, it's, whatever is happening out there. They've actually dumbed down the reference ranges for sperm. It used to be at, the count, morphology, and motility used to be at a higher level.
Okay.
But they're finding now that they have to dumb down the reference range because nobody would have average normal sperm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what do you think what's caused that?
Right. Stress for one thing.
Yeah.
Environment. One thing we are adamant about is I'm a real foodie.
Yes.
In terms of...
Me too.
Yes. It's so important. And it's not just what you eat. It's, do you absorb it, and is it getting transported into the cell? And hopefully we'll talk about PCOS a little bit later. But to that point, when I gave this talk yesterday, we talked about male factor, and we talked about how women have more determination and are willing to put a little more effort and time into, I think, having acupuncture and doing the things they need.
Yeah.
Men, they're the hunters. They have different things on their mind.
Yes.
So we encourage men to come for treatments because there are a lot of things we can do in Chinese medicine. On Facebook, I post all the time the different things that affect our hormones, and they're called xenohormones. And they're everywhere in our environment. They're in your cosmetics, in your hairspray, in your perfume, in the tap water. So we encourage our folks to really reel in what you can control, what you can control. Some are just not in our control. But all those things lead to a healthy environment, and that's our goal, is to create the healthiest environment.
I love that. Well, I'm going to be doing an interview very soon with somebody who specializes in the cosmetic side.
Nice.
Of getting everything, all of the bad stuff out of your cosmetics and cleaning all of that up, all of your cleaning products, all of that. So that's coming. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention really quickly is that when we do this fertility conference, we're actually going to have a man cave. We're actually going to have a specific area for men, and we're going to kind of cater to you guys out there. So we want you to know that, be aware that that's coming. And we are trying to take care of the guys. Okay, so I read what you wrote about the zinc sparks, and I am fascinated by this one. Can you talk about this?
Yes, so it was Northwestern University did an interdisciplinary research on looking at what happens. They used a mammalian egg, and what they discovered when they photographed it was that sparks literally fly when a sperm and egg meet.
That is so
cool. It gives me goosebumps because
I know, me too.
Ancient medicine wrote about what happens when the sperm and egg meet. They call it the divine spark.
Wow. And it's so, literal sparks.
Literal sparks. And so, they're looking at, the conclusion they came was they're looking at zinc's role. Zinc's role, that's one of the things we sit down with the men and really see what they're going to need in terms of supplements, lifestyle, dietary changes.
I'm enjoying this because one of the things that I've always talked to my clients about is that pretty much across the board, if you're struggling with fertility, you have a zinc deficiency. And it's not necessarily that you're not eating enough zinc. Most Americans eat plenty of zinc. It's, are you absorbing the zinc that you're eating?
Right.
And so many people are not properly absorbing that zinc. And then there's that zinc copper that needs to be in balance in order for things to work properly. But I love this about the sparks when the sperm and the egg meet, and
Very
and the
cool.
zinc
You
being
can look
involved
it
in
up on
that.
the internet. It's quite fun to watch.
So yeah, we can post that link so that other people can look it up as well. So let's talk about stress and how stress can either enhance your chances of getting pregnant or decrease your chances of getting pregnant.
Right. So everybody's under some kind of stress,
Yes.
me included. And we think about how are our patients adapting to stress. Some people can handle balance a lot of balls in the air, and they're just able to do that.
Yeah.
Other people like me, I have my limitations, right?
Yeah.
So knowing your limitations is important. Meditation, relaxation, all those things are important. And then to just also reiterate, when you're in stress mode, your blood flow is not going to your core, because
Right.
we're meant to be using our muscles to run. And the other thing is, our brains work very differently. When we're in stress, our instinct is not, let's make love, let's have sex,
That's true.
right?
Your
We're
libido
thinking
definitely
about
goes
how
down.
am I going to cope with tomorrow? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And so I always use the example of, for women, especially if you ever notice when you go on vacation and you have 2 weeks of just being with hubby, not having any deadlines, how libidos will really spike.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to find ways. Meditation, adaptogenic herbs, which are fabulous for regulating the cortisol and making those lifestyle changes.
What are some of those adaptogenic herbs?
Right, so
What was that?
reishi mushroom is one, cordyceps is another one. I use that for athletic enhancement. Lion's mane will help with brain function.
Yeah, I use that one.
Yes, and I'm trying to think what else. Rhodiola is another one. A lot of the mushrooms, I post on Facebook quite a bit about the different mushrooms and how they work.
Okay.
And I use them every day.
Mushrooms are amazing. They're fascinating.
They
I
are.
love it. I could do a whole myco class, and
Yeah.
I could do it all. So one of the other things that I had seen, talked a little bit about going on vacation in order to improve libido and things like that. If they come in for acupuncture, about how many sessions do they end up doing, and how long does that take?
That's a good question. Everybody is different, and it depends on the age of the patient. Older women might take a little bit longer because women tend to be blood deficient, immune deficient in terms of we bleed every month,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
For years and years. In China, as soon as a little gal starts her periods, they always prescribe post-menstrual herbs.
Oh, do they?
Blood tonics, yin tonics, because they know that after so many years, it can really deplete.
Wow.
Yeah, so my goal is to do preconception care. And what we know about the human body biology is that the oocyte that you gals are ovulating this month actually started coming through the cycle 3 months ago.
Right.
Example, if I have a patient who wants to have a baby and she's smoking, I always tell her, give yourself 3 months, because that oocyte that's going to be ovulated in 3 months is still under the influence of smoke.
Okay.
Right, and same thing with men, it kind of takes 3 months. So I like to see them, especially if they're having miscarriages, they're older patients.
Yeah.
I like to see them for the minimum of 3 months.
Okay.
I call it, it's sort of like, I talk about, I would never go to the start line of an Ironman without having trained for it, right? So I might get to the start line, but I may not get to the finish line. So for them, getting pregnant is not the goal. And we
Right.
talked about this yesterday. The goal is the baby.
Right.
And so you have to do a little bit of work to improve the male side, improve the female side, correct the environment to make each, a sperm and an egg is a cell, right?
Right.
And exactly as you pointed out, just because you're eating food doesn't mean you're, number one, absorbing it, and number two, that it's getting into the cell.
Right.
And the mighty ATP is what's going to drive those cells.
Yes.
So another subject one day might be gut health.
Yeah.
Many of us.
Pretty much
struggle.
everybody in the
Yeah.
United States at least needs gut health.
Right.
Help.
More and more studies are coming out now on the biome of the gut. and the gut-brain connection.
Yes,
So,
and that's fascinating to me.
yeah.
I saw something recently that talked about aspartame and how aspartame causes the bacteria that's in your gut to actually become toxic.
Right.
And so aspartame is just, stay away from aspartame.
Yeah,
for
and sugar.
every reason.
I mean,
Yeah, and sugar.
carbohydrates, they all cause inflammation for
Yeah.
sure.
So let's talk a little bit about specific diagnoses. Let's talk about PCOS first. What do you do for PCOS? Can you talk a little bit about what polycystic ovary syndrome actually is from the Western side, and then talk about how acupuncture helps?
Right. So PCOS is a name they gave. So you remember, and so what happens is sometimes when women have ultrasounds, they will find polycystic ovaries. They look like a little string of pearls in the ovaries.
Yeah.
Something else they see is hirsutism, which is hair where they don't want a chin, lip. And some women have that as well. And that's usually flagged by blood labs. They'll have too many male hormones. Some women will have amenorrhea. Some women will not. So when PCOS is defined, there are many. The Rotterdam has one sort of definition of PCO in Western medicine, and there's a couple of different things. But the bottom line is so important to remember is that the one thing that these all have in common is the insulin resistance.
Right.
Right. So too much sugar in the body drives dysregulation of the hormones, right? And so it can cause infertility. And what's interesting, and I stress to my moms, is that this is something that they can pass to their baby. It goes three generations, and now they're looking at that it might even go further in terms of the epigenetic piece of it. So if mom has oocytes that are under the influence of too much sugar, they get pregnant, then the babies, her baby, and then her grandchild can also be affected by this.
Wow.
So important to remember. PCOS is just a label. Just because they don't have polycystic ovaries on an ultrasound, just because they're, having regular, it's not. So in Chinese medicine, we sit down and we find these imbalances. 99.9% of the time, I can flag PCOS, insulin resistant patient who has no idea, their OB has no idea.
Wow. Because they've done all the testing, and all the testing came back normal.
They say, oh, well, she said I don't have, polycystic ovaries, and I don't have hair, and I don't have, elevated androgens, or I don't have elevated DHEA. But because we look at the environment closely, I think in here we talk about, when we see a patient, we put our Sherlock Holmes hat on.
Yeah.
And we dive into every aspect of their bodies. And not all PCOS patients are treated alike. Not all amenorrheic patients are treated alike, because it's coming from a different source. It's our job to find the source and then correct that environment.
Okay, fascinating. Let's talk about endometriosis. How does acupuncture help with that?
Right, so we know endometriosis is inflammation and it causes a lot of pain. It can cause infertility because it can obstruct the fallopian tubes. It can get wrapped around the ovaries, bowels, and it's usually driven by estrogen. So usually around the period time, patients will start having more pain. Not all women with endometriosis have symptoms. It's interesting. So in Chinese medicine, we say that's a stagnation of qi, blood, and phlegm. So we have herbs that break stasis, that enhance the flow of blood through an area that might be kind of stuck, decrease inflammation, again, correct the hormones, right, because it's estrogen driven.
Yeah.
And I've had patients who didn't have a life because of endometriosis, and after 6 months to a year, they were back living a normal life. It's pretty amazing.
It's pretty debilitating, but it can be overcome, for sure.
It can be, yeah.
So.
And of course, if I think, this is the other piece, because I am integrative, I do have a sense of when is it time to refer out.
Yeah, and that's important.
It's really important, because I don't promise my 41 and 46-year-olds that I can get them pregnant. I say, look, I'll give you a little bit of time. Let's see how it goes. And if you don't get pregnant in X amount of time, then I think we need to look at look at what needs to be tested.
Okay. What about fibroids?
So a lot of fibroids are not going to affect fertility. If they're somewhere in the pelvis and they're not pushing on the uterus, they're not inside, they're maybe on the outside. But, I mean, it still needs to be looked at under ultrasound to find out if it's affecting fertility. You know, polyps are another very common thing. And polyps can actually diminish implantation because they're in the way of those little implantation sites.
Oh, wow.
And so again, in Chinese medicine, that's stagnation.
Okay.
We always try and follow the menstrual cycle. When they're bleeding, you need to have a good bleed. So we prescribe herbs to like slough off that whole uterine wall lining, because now you have a fresh place to rebuild that lining again. Not building over an old uterine wall lining. You need to clean that out and refresh it.
And I think one thing a lot of women don't realize is that if the blood at the beginning of or the end of their period is brown, that means that it's been in your uterus too long.
Right.
And you need to get a good flush, like what you're talking about.
Yeah, good point.
So when you talk about stagnation, acupuncture is basically just to release this, and then your body is able to take care of it. How does your body take care of that once it's released?
The body knows how to heal itself.
That's very true.
You know, it really does. Macrophages when you get an injury.
Yeah.
And so when we use herbs to break stasis in blood, it has to either come out like so uterus, when we're breaking blood stasis in or around the uterus in the reproductive organs, it's got to come out through the menses, right? Mm-hmm. So what we find is a lot of women have clots. That's one flag of stagnation. 99.9% of our women who have cramping and clotting can be resolved after about 3 months of acupuncture, which is my clue that they are more regulated, they're getting rid of their uterine wall lining.
Okay.
We look at the menstrual cycle as the sign of health. I mean, the menstrual cycle gives us a really good insight of what's going on with a woman's health.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing with men.
And you look at the quality of the blood, the color of the blood, all of those kinds of things, and all of that makes a big difference.
I know. They look at me cross-eyed. I want to know, okay, cycle day 1, what color is the blood? Do you have cramps? Do you have clots? How many pads? How many tampons?
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes we find breakthrough bleeding, spotting through the whole month. We fix that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is what you're talking about with wearing your Sherlock Holmes hat. You just really dig in and get down to the core and figure out what's going on.
Exactly.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about PCOS and how PCOS is an insulin resistance. We, as Americans, we like our sweets. We like our treats. So how do we get around that? What are some solutions?
Right. So I have been low carb. I'm an athlete who trains 15 hours a week when I'm training, and I use low carbs. And so basically what that means is I don't do grains. Milk and dairies are a huge product of inflammation. It's a lot of dampness, so we get our patients off that. But the thing about in the whole keto thing, keto is a relevant word, right?
Right.
And so the keto is popular now, and what I love about it is they have so many recipes out there that make you feel like I have a couple of things that I make at home that make me feel like I have a treat.
Yeah.
And they're made of coconut oil, butter, almond butter, those kinds of things. And so we all want to have that treat. We don't want to live our life in denial.
Yes.
But there are so many ways that we can sort of give ourselves that treat. And that's one thing that I'm so adamant about with my patients is I can tell them to make lifestyle and dietary changes, but I need to teach them how.
Yes, because most people don't know.
Exactly.
They just don't know.
Exactly.
So one of the things that I've learned to do over the years is when you Google recipes, you look for paleo, you look for keto, and you look for raw. And especially when you're looking for treats and sweets and things, those are the ways to get good ones that are not going to throw off your hormone balance.
Exactly. The whole thing about the grains and sweets is that it spikes your insulin.
Yeah.
So now you're in that insulin resistant type things, because guess what? If you have too much sugar in your body, your cells are going to become resistant. You're meant to have 1 teaspoon of sugar in your blood at any given time. Imagine people who have coffee, 3 teaspoons of sugar 3 times a day, whatever.
Yeah.
So the cells become resistant. It's like they put on gloves, because if they get too much sugar in the cell, they die. It's called apoptosis. So the cells are pretty smart to protect themselves.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if they have their gloves on, what's happening to the nutrients?
Not able to get in.
You got it. Perfect.
Wow. So what would you recommend for couples who are currently struggling with fertility?
So, contact us.
Yeah, of course.
We have to have two of us there, Dr. Sarah. Come in for an evaluation. I will always allow 10 minutes for people to come in and talk to us for no charge.
Okay.
Right? I think it's important. Education is so important. And I think with education, you can make so many more educated decisions.
Yeah.
On your fertility.
Yeah.
Look up xenohormones, clean up your diet, look at the makeup you're using, meditation, yoga, whatever you can do for stress. Go for walks. In Chinese medicine, we say liver qi stagnation. The liver is, the emotion that goes with liver is anger, resentment, unfulfilled desires.
Okay.
So guess what? Every patient woman who is not achieving pregnancy has liver qi stagnation, right?
Yeah.
Walking will help move that liver energy. It's also anger.
It's interesting that it's every single person is different. There's bio-individuality, which means every single person is different. We're all going to respond differently. A walk may be the perfect thing for somebody, and
right.
You come back and you want to have sex and you end up pregnant, whereas somebody else, it's not going to be quite that simple.
Right.
So everybody is different, and it's important, I think, to honor your body, to respect this body that you're living in, and to appreciate your body, and to be willing to do whatever it is that you need to do. Because at the end of the day, I think that if you're not able to get pregnant, there's other things going on that are going to affect you. And so you want to take care of it. You want to be the healthiest person that you can be. My motto is, I want to live while I'm alive.
Exactly.
I'm not one of those people seeking longevity. However, while I'm alive, I want to live.
Right. And that's my menopause patients. It's kind of like, you want to be the best 50-year-old you can be.
Yeah.
And that it's the same as creating the right environment. And you're right. Like, I'm not a yoga person.
Yeah.
To me, riding my bike or running gives me that space. That's my expression. And the other thing is, I do think, it's important to flag age. If they've been trying for 1 year and they're not pregnant, you might need to do some testing. So this is what I always look at. Are there eggs? Is there sperm? Can the sperm and egg meet? And is there a safe place for the baby to grow? So, are there eggs that can be tested with FSH and other, Western means, blood labs? Sperm analysis, and I cannot stress this more, is if the guys are going to have a sperm analysis, you must seek out an andrology lab, because they look at the sperm in many, many different ways rather than just at the hospital. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, I didn't know about that.
And then can the eggs and sperm meet? Many times the fallopian tubes are blocked, and guess what?
Yeah.
I can do acupuncture, you can do lifestyle changes till the cows come home, but if the tubes are blocked, it's not gonna work.
Right.
And then also, is there a safe place for the baby to grow? So ultrasound of the uterus, hysteroscope, where they put water fluid into to find if the tubes are open, a hysterosalpingogram will show if it's blocked.
Okay.
Yeah.
You talked about coming in, and I do just want to quickly mention that your office was so welcoming. It's warm and cozy and welcoming, and it smelled so good when I came in. So
Thank you.
It's a wonderful place, and if you're willing to meet with people for 10 minutes and
absolutely
help them feel at ease, I think that as soon as they walk into your office, they're going to immediately start to feel at ease about it.
Yes.
So I think that's wonderful that you're willing
you.
to do that. Do you want to let people know your contact information, how to get a hold of you?
Sure. So our website is www.eastwindsacupuncture.com. And we have Facebook, East Winds Acupuncture at Facebook. Our phone number is 719-520-5056. And our email is info@eastwindsacupuncture.com.
And you're here in Colorado Springs. Of
We
course, this podcast can be heard by anybody in the world. So how do you recommend people find somebody outside of Colorado Springs if they can't come here?
Yeah, good question. So the Aborn has a website. It's aborm.org. I'll repeat it, aborm.org. And when you open that website, it'll have a list where you can click on practitioners.
Okay.
Then you're able to put your zip code or where you live and find someone close to you. And I do recommend, I have patients who move out of town sometimes, and they always ask me, how am I going to find an acupuncturist? I always recommend that if you're going to look for another acupuncturist, first of all, know you're in great hands. If these people have studied and passed the test of Aborn, they specialize in all women's health.
Okay.
But you want to make sure you connect with that practitioner.
Yeah.
So I recommend asking the patient, telling my patient, call their office. Will the practitioner give you 10 minutes of their time? Sit down, walk in their office. How do you feel? Is it clean? Reception is great.
Yeah.
Sit down in front of that practitioner and just, how do I feel? Am I comfortable telling this person how I feel? It's important.
It is
that
important.
you tell every aspect. And what I love about what I do and working with reproductive endocrinologists is when my patients come in, they can complain. Do you know what I mean? They can
get it out.
And it makes them feel better. It's important.
That you provide that safe space for them to just express whatever they need to express.
Exactly. No judgment, no shame, just.
So ABORM, just really quickly, stands for the American Board of Oriental Reproductive Medicine.
Right.
I just wanted to let people know, what that actually means. As we wrap this up, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
I just think don't give up hope.
Yes.
I think don't give up hope. There are so many technologies now to help with couples. And, it's accepted now, same-sex couples, guys want to have babies, surrogacy, donor eggs. And so I think don't give up. We see a lot of women who struggle with not getting pregnant and even having done IVF. And there are solutions. And make sure you get your support group around you.
Yeah.
And please don't just read blogs on the internet.
Yeah.
Dr. Google, it's not worth it.
It drives you down a hole
within yourself. And
yes.
Get your cronies along with you to walk this walk.
If you're going to do Google, go to meditations for fertility. Google things like that. Google yoga for fertility. Things that are actually going to help. But that's what the purpose of the Colorado Springs Fertility Conference is, to help people know that there are more options out there. Help people understand that there are several different avenues to explore. Yeah. And we want the resources out there. We want people to know that there are other options. So we want you to know what your options are. We want you to know where you can go. And in this case, go see Dr. Diane. Go to East Winds Acupuncture, see Dr. Diane, sit down with her. And, if you connect and you want to start doing some acupuncture, that's fantastic.
And just remember, you don't have to choose East over West. We can combine, and that gives us, the best outcomes for getting a take-home baby.
Yes.
And sometimes just combining the combination. I talk about our health is like a padlock. If you just keep slamming in one number,
you're never going to get anywhere.
The health isn't going to open, but you just have to find the right combination. And to your point, it's different for everybody. That's why they call us individuals.
Right, exactly. I love that analogy. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here with us, Dr. Diane.
I look forward to your conference.
Thank you. Fabulous. Yes, that's going to be May 26th here in Colorado Springs, but we'll keep you updated on that.
Thank you for listening. Please visit www.coloradospringsfertilityconference.com to let us know what you would like to learn about next and to register for the conference. Thank you for listening. Please visit www.coloradospringsfertilityconference.com to let us know what you would like to learn about next and to register for the conference.